Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where we bring the mind, body, and gym together so you can improve your health, increase performance, and live your best life. For more information, visit thinkfitnesslife.com. Here are your hosts, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie.
Full team here today, the Think Fitness Life team, with your hosts Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie. We have our guest trainer with us today, part of the Think Fitness Life team. Justin Riddick is joining us, and our topic that we're going to be talking about this week is how participation trophies killed work ethic. Before we dive right in, we always like to deliver our weekly workout, save a little bit of food for thought at the end. So we got a little bit of a challenging one this week. We got sprinter lunges, 3 by 6 on each side. I'll let Riddick explain how you want to do those sprinter lunges.
So you treat a sprinter's lunge just like doing a normal reverse lunge body weight. You hit that reverse lunge, and then as you stand up from that reverse lunge, instead of just bringing your foot to meet the other one, you'll drive that knee up into what I call a chamber position. So that knee comes up to about hip height. And if it's possible for you, you'll kind of add a little plyometric to it at the top. So you'll drive that knee up with that arm drive going as well and get that standing foot up off the ground. And then you want to, under control, slowly descend back into or decelerate back into that reverse lunge, drive that knee up, get a little plyometric in there, and then decelerate back into your reverse lunge. So important there, just keep it under control on the way down, keep your core nice and tight, and drive your arms, drive that knee up to your hip.
Yeah, get explosive and absorb that impact and land like a boss. 6 reps on each leg, then rest probably about 60 seconds, do another round, and you're done after 3 rounds. Then you'll move on to a barbell front squat. I know a lot of people avoid the barbell front squat, and I think it's a challenging lift that has a lot of value in it. So give that one a go. Supporting this day is a chest-supported reciprocating row, another unconventional one to challenge you guys. 3 by 8 on each side. You're always holding. Reciprocating row means you're always holding one while one arm is dropping before you row again. So the last thing was just a single leg RDL, foot on the wall. Really liking that one. Foot on the wall, foot on the floor, toes close to the floor, and that back leg is also pushing down into the wall, while that front leg that you're doing the work on is pushing through the floor. And that way you can feel your glutes underneath you, you can feel your pelvic flooring, but then you'll be able to find that hamstring closer to the inside of the leg there on that front leg. 10 on each leg there, and then that's a pretty solid day. If you want to throw a little bit of core work in there, a front rack carry for 30 yards on each side, 3 rounds, then you're done. It's a good workout. All right. So there's so much about this topic that we want to cover today. We're going to try to keep it pretty organized here, but we're probably going to go off on some tangents because we got a lot to say about this. First thing, participation trophies, good or bad? What's your opinion? We want to hear it first from everybody. Eric, you're up.
I am not in favor of them.
Okay. All right. Riddick, what you got?
I would say initially, no, I'm not in favor of them either, but I do see the other side of the fence. So,
okay. And I want to just share my 2 cents. Is just I see the value in the participation trophies at a critical period in a child's development, but then I see its pitfalls or its damaging effects later in their development, like say after the age of 3. So who wants to start? I mean, I think we should just basically start with our viewpoint and the stuff we've read about the downsides of the participation trophies, and then we can talk about work ethic. So the biggest thing is that it undervalues the hard work and the success, and it overvalues just the attempts. I think just in that in of itself is you're just robbing the value of work ethic right there. of someone who worked so hard to win something, and what's the point? Everyone else got the same thing.
Right. Now, I think there's degrees. I mean, have you guys ever gotten a participation trophy?
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
two. But the way I remember it is you got one for the end of baseball season, but you also knew who won the league. You knew who the champions were because they got a better trophy.
Yep.
I think if that's a scenario, I think that's understandable because kids still know that they didn't win. But what I think we're alluding to is they're kind of taking away the winners, the first, second, third, and almost like everyone's getting a similar trophy just for showing up. And that puts less importance on a drive to win. And if you don't have an importance on the drive to win, you don't understand really what that work ethic to hard work is. And that's the big issue here. It just evens a playing field, and there's never a goal to surpass someone or some team or your own record if you're running track.
It's almost like it enforces that need for that like instant gratification of like I showed up so I get something, rather than highlighting when you trust the process and put the time in and the work in and the effort in, that this is what the outcome can be.
Right.
Every now and then.
And that instant gratifications was that driving loop for many things of, okay, I did something, I got a trophy, it was a positive reward. When kids start getting negative feedback, and it's like, okay, now
they
what
don't know how
do?
to handle it.
Exactly. So now all of a sudden that they've never experienced these emotions of anxiety or fear of losing or sadness or stress because they weren't praised. They don't know how to handle that. And then if it keeps going, it becomes a loop, right? And I've been on a lot of losing teams in my career of sports, so it's you get okay. You lose, but you also understand, like, or coach will tell you, this is you work hard in the off seasons, you train in the off seasons to be better and better. So I think it's a good thing to lose, because if they don't lose or don't get a good trophy at first or second, then you start creating this no failure loop where no failure equals no learning. So now we're taking kids in a sporting environment. I think sports are really good to build character and the concept of winning and losing in life. And you don't learn that. So you take a whole learning aspect and you just shut it down.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there too. It's important, I think, to, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's good to, just be okay with losing, but it's important to learn how to lose. And it's all depends on how you term things. Like some people can say, oh, I never lose, I just learn. So but it's really important to learn the process of losing and winning. And if you're just always treated like, hey, like, oh, you're a winner, good job, little Johnny, you did great today, like, but it's not reality. And I think, you need to, at some point, and it's tough to determine when you do that. We need to teach kids when, hey, like, this is reality, and this is what life is really going to be like when, you get out into the real world, and it's not always going to be a pat on the back for you. So.
And it kind of goes off of another episode that we did this season, was about kind of the comfort zone. Is you have to overcome that uncomfortable stage to expand your comfort zone anyway. So you have to go through the period of losses and adversity and facing challenges, and it better off at a young age and in something that I can say doesn't carry that much weight in someone's life at a young age, in youth athletics, at least in an area where we seem to implement the participation trophies to begin with. It's like that's the best time for them to play around with things and fail and fall and learn how to deal with their anger and their frustration on the court, or with their teammates, and be a good team player or a leader, good sport, things like that. So I think it's just like so weird how it's like that particular time period, they just like are keeping the training wheels on. And like we're saying, it's like robbing them of those experiences to adversity. And what's so funny, I think, is like I remember the first time I heard, I think it was on Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory with Kobe Bryant, and he was just talking about how Kobe was drilling things so much and looking for the weaknesses. He was like attacking where the breakdown in his skills were, the breakdown in the team was in a particular play, because it was like exciting for them. It was like every adversity they found, they knew it was opportunity for growth. And like you said, like it's just kind of like how you look at it.
Right. And it's a big aspect. And I also think it lies on a lot of coaching or teaching. If you're a teacher, I've had coaches in the past, even if you lost, at the end of the game, they go, it hurts. Well, we did some things well. We didn't do things well enough to win. But at the end, he'd always say, come together as a team. You guys are a team. Have each other's back. Have fun. Go out, and we'll assess it next week. And it's you're almost this building this culture of who are dynamics of a team were, that you were a family. And with participation trophies, it goes back to learning. You don't understand that, or maybe you don't get that because the coaches are like, hey, you got a trophy. You can go home and be like, hey, all right, I got something. But are they really learning to not even individually, but like come together as if you're as a team sport, and then have something to work towards? And I think that's an issue, because there's always another game. There's always another season. And if you don't have a will or a drive to want to win badly enough, work ethic just goes right out the window. It might be there a little bit, but it just dwindles, because now there's no top thing. There's no top prize.
And I just want to make sure we also highlight one piece, because it's not that we're like money mongers in the sense of winning, where it's like you just got to win, so important. No, it's just that the idea of competition and competing towards a goal where only one person or one team can win creates this application of one's full potential, so to speak. That competition creates that athlete, that individual trying their hardest, or trying harder than they even imagined. And like Steve Prefontaine, a famous track star, said, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice your gift. So the idea of putting them in a scenario where there is only a winner and that is the outcome and the other people are losers does create that environment where people push themselves beyond what they could have imagined, and then get growth and learning.
So from a youth, and assuming like participation trophies aren't limited to just being, a youth sports athlete, or being, in a
True
school spelling bee or whatever. Like, and I think it's important to note that like just the term participation trophy is not applying to just being a kid. Like, it's applying to like throughout the rest of life. If you participated in a team that accomplished, a Nobel Prize, like, are you getting credit for that just because you participated on it? Like, it's not just, I think it's important to note that this is speaking in a much more general sense, in a much bigger spectrum than just youth athletes. But for this scenario, like, I find myself thinking, at what age do you then differentiate between, all right, we're just playing to have fun and we're playing to win? Like, when you're 3, 4, 5 years old, getting out there playing sport for the first time, a lot of kids are just playing to have fun. Like, at what point do you then transition to like, all right, you play to win the game, like when?
I think it's a little bit of like a continuum or a spectrum, right? There's that young age, the kicky kidders soccer, where it's like clearly doesn't matter to anyone who wins the game. Just we want the kids to have fun and be up and moving. And then as you get older, it starts to balance out the ship a little bit, and it's like maybe more of a 50-50 or 40-60, still more 60 fun than 40 of win. And then when you get to like even that competitive middle school, high school, senior in high school even, it's still, there's a level of fun, but now it might be more like 70-80 to try to win, and that 20-30 is still keeping the fun there. Like, I still remember just having coaches who would say things like that, like, at the end of the day, it's about you guys like having fun and growing from your experiences here than anything else. And I think there is value to that, remembering that even in whatever level you get to. Mm-hmm. Almost like work. Like if you're not having fun doing what you do for a living, for your career, then I think you're doing something wrong.
Gotcha.
So I think there is always that kind of that continuum of the fun win balance.
Yeah, and I agree. I think there'll always be for people on that spectrum. For some reason, I've always seen like around probably age 7 development. I think where 2 through 6, it's these kids are kind of learning concepts, kicking a ball. They're just motor developmentally learning, and then some of all kind of like 7 and 8. We really as humans we kind of like get this big developmental growth. I mean, I think we're in like the second grade. We're really starting to get a little more complex. We're diving into a little more complex things in school and life. And I think it's a good understanding to be like, and kids, I think, know as you grow up and you start, hey, I'm watching TV. I watch the Super Bowl. At 5 and 6, you're like, I'll pick the team, whichever jersey I like. But then 7, you start to like understand the sport and like, oh, that person won and that person's successful. Let's look at Tom Brady holding up a trophy. So I think that's
Or
when
throwing it across a boat,
for
throwing
me,
it
it's
across the channel.
a lot of that is like that's when you kind of really kind of teaching. Okay, still for fun, but there's a winning and losing concept that's kind of built in.
Yep.
That they start to learn about.
Yeah, and that's a big developmental age for a lot of kids, because then it primes them for, especially once they're starting to get into like the teenage years. I think that's hugely important, because now obviously you're mixing in hormones with all emotions and stuff, and if it's not taught by then, I think it can get a little interesting.
It's funny you said that, because there was an article that I read when I was looking up stuff about this topic, and it was saying how one of the problems is at a young age, it imprints on them this idea that every time you walk away, you need to have something. You need to be achieving something physical type of deal, right? There are the participation trophies. You need to be getting something. And it robs the athlete or the individual or the kid who grows up of the understanding that giving your best, applying your best effort, and preparing your best is the best thing you can do to walk away, win or lose, feeling good about yourself.
Right. And I like what Justin pointed out earlier, that it's just not sports. I think that we're talking about winning, lose, like you said, but we get these participation awards, trophies, whatever you want to call them. The end of the day, we want to be successful in career and life, whatever people want to be successful in, that's it. And if we kind of are leveling out success and dropping its importance, then what does that mean? Now we're starting not to give meaning to success. And when people don't have meaning to success, they really don't have meaning to what they are. And they really start to have no purpose. And that's a big problem for me, because now the brain has no purpose. It really has no will to drive. So then it's just this, one level state, and we get back to the loop. When something goes really wrong and adversity comes up, how does this reaction happen?
They're not able to handle it.
What do people do? And a lot of times I've seen people who aren't successful, or they kind of get fallen into that. They look to other people to help solve their problems or get successful. And the issue is, while this is going on, everyone else around us is being successful at different times. So it's not like the world is just on an equal playing field. You flip on social media, you can see successful people left and right. And then how's that go? It's just now it loops back and back and back. And the work ethic just diminishes. There's no meaning.
That almost that facade of the necessity for appearing successful 24/7 is sort of the one of the problems, because it's like an overbearing control of the parents sometimes, because they feel like if their kid fails or loses, it's a reflection on them, rather than, nope, like, let that kid fall off his bike, let him deal with that pain, let him pick himself back up and wipe the dirt off of them.
Yeah.
Especially in a setting where you can observe them and help them if they need to.
Especially in a safe setting of like youth sports. Like, no one's gonna experience hopefully not like a truly traumatic experience in youth sports or in a youth spelling bee or in, choir or band. Like, those are like safe settings where it's okay to fail, like temporarily, and to learn and to lose. Like, I was working out the other day and I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he said something that really registered with me. And I thought about this, like, if you never have to overcome obstacles, then you never know if you really can. So if you never lose, or you never stress your body or your mind, like, you never know if you can then overcome that. So if you grow up always being catered to, and hey, you never lose, you never You never have to overcome an obstacle. Like, you then grow up in life thinking that's just the way it is, and it's really not. Like, at some point in life, you're gonna have to overcome an obstacle, and you're gonna get, you know, punched in the face and like, wow, okay, this is what it's really like to have to fight back and have some determination, some grit, you know?
Yeah.
And then once you get to that grit, I think it becomes a problem because now people don't understand what effort is, and they don't understand work ethic, and they don't understand what it takes to get there because they have this one connotation of what they think it is. So then there's no push.
There's no pressure to learn or.
Well, I shouldn't say no push. There's probably some. It's minimal to little effort because they think, okay, if I do this enough, I should be good. But that's not the case.
Vince Young. Take Vince Young, for example. The first time he got booed, he went into like this depressive episode. He was this beautifully talented quarterback, and he had everything that it took, but he probably didn't have that. He just had low self-efficacy for whatever reason. You could say maybe brain wiring issues or previous experience, but it was essentially.
So I guess the other thing is if you delay failure too long, then when you first get there, it might be too catastrophic for people.
It's more permanent than anything else. Yeah, you know what? It makes me think of all these things that I learned at a young age to help me kind of have the confidence to keep persevering. And it was like Michael Jordan didn't even make his high school basketball team. Albert Einstein failed calculus. J.D. Salinger, who wrote Catcher in the Rye, he dropped out of college because he failed English. Like, you know what I mean? These are three people who faced failure who are some of the greatest names today, you know?
It builds resiliency, you know, like, and like you were saying before, it's just, it's tough, but I think we're rewarding sometimes too much, like mediocre effort. Behavior, like like, you know, it's okay to be mediocre. Like, no one goes into life thinking, oh, you know, I just want to be okay at this. I just want to be okay in life. I just want to be mediocre. Like, we all want to, we want to thrive. We want to succeed. You want to see your kids succeed. You want to see your parents succeed. You want to see your teammates succeed. Like, no one gets into anything in life to just be okay at it, you know? So I think if we continue to reward mediocrity, then we're just going to fall into that pattern of, you know, it's okay to suck at something and not give your best, you know, because there needs to be those people in the world. Like, there doesn't need to be those people in the world. Like, we should all be thriving and striving to excel at something, you know?
And there's that group that wants to suppress emotions. We're trying to eliminate negative emotion from society or even the brain. And with whether it's drugs, whether it's, you know, rewards, something like that's not a good thing. You can't start taking things away from our neurological and biological body that should be there. And 100%. I think that's when we get really screwed up, and it can be detrimental.
Right. And it's definitely in full agreement. You can look at the data that anxiety, stress, suicide, depression, those rates have gone up in the last 30 years. You know, when you protect from any adversity or any negative emotion at such a young age, that's going to lead to that. And, you know, people just want to pretend that everything's good or everyone's good. Then you never empower someone to address those negative emotions or any mental health problems that come along later in their life. And it is like, yeah, I don't know. I've been to a lot of working with Congo now. Been around a lot of the youth athletic stuff and been hearing a lot of stories, and you just hear so much about how the parents almost are reliving their glory days through their kids' experience, and it's robbing the kid of their own experience and their own failures, and, you know, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Their journey of success, you know, and actually working for it.
And the delay is there. So now you see, instead of having this at a younger 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you're pushing this years. And then say we're starting to get to high school with some of these kids. And then at high school ends, you're 18. You're either, you know, you're going to the workforce, you're going to college. That's not the same systems. You're going to kind of get flat on your face if you're not ready for it. And I think that's where I think we're starting to see the younger generation that are kind of entering college have these kind of issues because they're not learning that development early, and now they have to learn it in a very competitive situation. And as we all know, like college professors, they don't care if you show up or don't show up. Like, they're going to get paid either way. it's kind of on your responsibility to learn and be successful in this environment. And I think, that's a great learning thing. We're seeing a lot of people have issues with that because they're not mentally at that stage in their life where they should be. So we're almost delaying learning as we go further and further. So they might finally get this when they're 26, 27, 28, where years ago, a lot of people get to college and it's like, oh, we're going to learn this real quick.
Right. That's a great point. Like, I think back to speaking to, like my older relatives and even some clients I have that are older, like they just simple life lessons, like they learned at such a younger age. Like I remember my father telling me at like 7, like, you got to be able to do your own laundry because you know what, your parents aren't going to be here to do it for you all the time. Like, and you have kids these days that are going home from college with buckets full of laundry because they don't know how to do their own laundry. It's like, it's something as simple as that. Like, we're just not being, not necessarily forced, but we're not being exposed to having to do things on our own at an early age anymore. And like you said, Menchie, like, it's just that everything's being delayed, and the youth, for lack of better terms, are learning these things far just later on in life, and it's just too late at that point.
We hope we see the trend as new parents come in. They're like, okay, well, no, we're going to kind of reset this, because it should be a bell curve. It should reach a peak, and then okay, it's got to come back down.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think it's a good thing if it goes long duration. And this is, of course, it's not everyone. People learn at different stages, but on a whole, that's why I think if you're giving mass rewards out to people and not putting people up in winner positions or first, second, third, then it's delaying neurological development to a high degree. And that's where we're kind of seeing a lot of issues stem from that.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of discussions about how they don't want to label or single out children in schools with learning disabilities. And my mom's a school psychologist. She's been working in the field for like 40 years. And she's the most kind-hearted, open person that's always trying to help every child. And she's like, that's the worst decision ever. She is not behind that at all, because it robs the individual of learning their differences and their shortcomings that then stimulate them at a young age to start to develop the skills and strategies to learn with their disability, and it makes them that much better as they get older. And that period in school when you have less pressures of the real world on you and responsibilities is that time to develop those skills and strategies. It's like taking someone who has learned survival skills and knows how to, make a fire or use a cover with brush and find a place that they can keep warm and sleep for the night. And then you take someone who's slept in a house their whole life and you just say, okay, go out in the woods and learn all the skills and strategies to survive tonight. It's like the demand at that time in that real world scenario is too fast for them to learn and use those skills because they've never developed them yet. And it's just like, it really needs to happen at that youth side. Like, I know participation trophies do expand to a lot of other realms, but I think in terms of understanding, our title of our podcast today, like participation kills work ethic, I really think it's about it kills the seed of work ethic being planted, and it kills the way it's developed in that critical period before they reach adulthood and fall flat on their face and have to like, oh, how do I put my hand down? How do I get up? How do I overcome this? How do I get better? What do I do to work on this? And yeah, so I think it's just kind of funny how I just feel like it does come down to a point in time in the individual's development. It's going to be a huge detrimental impact to them later in life.
And we've seen it in the fitness industry. I mean, the gym we worked at when we were there, people have this concept: if I show up and do the minimal, I should look like this.
Yeah.
And so they don't understand the actual.
If I just buy the right supplements,
right? They don't understand the actual effort. It's like you can show up and do 60 minutes in the gym, but it's what you're doing in that 60 minutes that really matter. And it's the effort you put into whatever you're doing, the sprints, the squats, the running. It's not just the duration but I think that's what you kind of see as people are getting older and in these fitness centers and people not really reaching where they want to be in the health and fitness industry is because of the concept of the work ethic's not even there.
It's like when
Because
you
there's no one
show up,
telling them, right? In work, someone's telling you to do something. Okay, you got to get this done and by this deadline. And, you know, if you don't do it, you're going to get fired. So you're going to do it. But when you're kind of on your own, there's no one overhead seeing you. You're just kind of like, okay, let me look online. This person must be doing that. I'll go in and do that. How come not seeing results?
Now, let me pose this question. Why do you think, and I'm speaking for everyone, but why do you think like a majority of people are reluctant to work hard? Why do you think, and like you can, in any realm, whether it's, you know, their fitness or job or life, like why do you think people are reluctant to put in a lot of work, like, and rather they just skate by and do the bare minimum? And
to a lot of things we said today, like three main things of they've never had the experience of how good it feels to put real work in for something and reap its real rewards, and how intrinsically empowering that feels when you just take full ownership and full responsibility and attack your goals and win. They've never observed the loss to think that they have something to work on, and then they, because of those two, they don't have any sort of why or motivating factor because they don't have any purpose. They've lacked kind of those three main things that we've highlighted today. And yeah, I mean, you can, and I think from those three, that expands off into so many other things about like fear of failure and, you know, lack of skills of dealing with some of these things as well.
Yeah. And it's, I believe like that stuff gets conditioned over time, especially in the brain. It's just,
that's permanent.
yeah. So it's just, and it's the uncomfortable, the unknown, like the fear of the unknown. Humans' brains don't like that. So I think once people get in this known, hey, I know what I'm going to wake up and do tomorrow morning at this time. I know what I'm going to drink at 12 p.m. I think that's easy for people, and they get conditioned to do it over and over again. And then as soon as things start to get a little shaky, I mean, that's fearful. We all know it's fearful. It's tough to do change and different things. The brain doesn't like that. That's why people are really reluctant to kind of really push out of that, and kind of they coast in this comfort zone. It's a brain predicts the future from the past. So they already know what their future is because of past emotions and past reactions that it has. So the brain's like, why am I going to change this?
They fear suffering. So they're really stuck in this little comfort bubble that's protected by fear, and they will never get out of that to build their comfort zone. So there's literally no growth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a very, very good question, and a lot of things people might need to ask themselves if they're in the situation. Like, why am I so reluctant to just be here? And do I not see a different future for me? Do I not mentally map out where I want to be or what I want to do, or have expectations? And then once you have expectations, it kind of drives a meaning. Do people start losing meaning and expectations in life, and they're coasting? And we're not saying everyone. You know, there's thousands of successful people out there, and they're go-getters. But on the flip side, there's also thousands of people that want to be there, but maybe just don't know how to get there or are afraid to take that first step.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to help stimulate people and help guide people along that journey and make it as easy as possible for them to show up and learn how to build that mental toughness and that mental self-regulation of knowing when's enough's enough and knowing when it's time to push yourself.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it becomes it's mental, because the 95% becomes subconscious in the brain. So like 95% of our daily life is subconscious. You know, you're gonna wake up. 5% is conscious control. That's a lot to really monitor and change. So it's people are almost like on autopilot 24/7, and they don't even realize it, because that's just how our brain works. So it's hard to really influence that conscious 5% to change the subconscious.
They almost need to get to that failure point a couple of times and feel like they've hit rock bottom to want to look internally and make a change to break out of that.
What makes you know what makes you know that you're alive. Like you just said, Menchie, like so many of us are just living life on autopilot, and it's just I think one of the issues with today's society is like you get people, we just sit here and we're mindlessly just scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, and people don't even realize that they're doing it. And like It's because their mind is just
Straight
on
mush.
autopilot. And now we got cars that drive themselves. You don't have to get up and, do anything anymore. Like everything's just being delivered to you. You don't have to go out and go shopping. Everything's delivered right to your door. Like it's just all these great things there's a purpose to them. Like the purpose is to make life easier, but they're making us, almost in a way weaker.
More dependent.
More dependent on these things. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I have like 3 quotes that I wanted to. I couldn't pick one for our food for thought for this topic, and I had 3, and then like 5 more popped up in my head when we were talking the whole time. I was like, I can't write any of those down, so I'll just keep it simple. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Fred DeVito. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. Denzel Washington. And then kind of the last one I wanted to end with, kind of along with what you guys are saying, is once you stop learning, you start dying. Albert Einstein. And it's so true. So true.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess we'll just mic drop on that one. All right. Well, that's it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And you guys are ready for taking it to the next step. Find us on Facebook at Think Fitness Life, or visit our website, thinkfitnesslife.com. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.
If you're ready to make steps towards improving your health or increasing your performance, book a free 30-minute call today by visiting thinkfitnesslife.com.